Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 12. It's supposed to be 13, but it isn't, not yet. So, hey there, Amanda James.
Hello. Hello,
Hello.
everyone.
So, today we're going to be talking about Lorne once again, and we're going to continue with his RSO assignments. And today we're going to be reviewing some letters that he wrote. So he wrote them to a few different parties. We'll see them as we continue. But I think everyone will find these interesting. I know I found them interesting when I first read them. And we're going to see how Lorne sees his relationships with other people. I'm sure that we can sort of come up with our own assumptions of those from the things that we've learned about him so far. How he feels about other people, how he feels that they feel about him, how he would like them to feel about him, and all of that. So a lot of that is going to be in here. So we're going to be talking about feelings. Isn't that going to be nice?
That is going to be lovely. My favorite part is always, like you said, we get to see how Lauren sees himself in these relationships and situations. And shockingly, he's always the victim.
Always. Always, always. So let's get started. So the very first page that we have here is regarding a letter that he's going to write to himself. So this is Lorne to Lorne. And the instructions say, when writing your letter, imagine yourself sitting face to face with yourself now and with the person you were when you were acting out. Write as if you had been given the opportunity to clarify your behavior and your current understanding of what impact your offending had upon the person you were and the person you are now. So here is a list of everything that should go into this letter. So, hang on one second. There we go. So we're going to see as we go along if Lorne included any, all, or none of these things. So the question, I guess, is going to be, can Lorne follow instructions? So go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I doubt it.
You
I
doubt
doubt it.
it. Okay.
I
I'm
doubt.
sure. Yeah, I'm sure everybody listening doubts it as well. So let's see.
Mhm.
So the letter is supposed to include the following. Number 1, state why the letter is being written. Number 2, acknowledge the details of the crime and the planning that went into it, including how deviant fantasizing and masturbation contributed to this planning. Avoid graphic detail that is offensive or re-victimizing. Number 3, express how your behavior has impacted you in all areas of your life. You need to address both long-term and short-term effects. Number 4, express how you feel about the person you victimized in any deviant fantasies. Number 5, take full responsibility for your behavior. That's going to be a big one, I see. Number 6, discuss what the crime has cost you. Number 7, discuss what therapy has helped you to understand about your acting out. Were you going to say something?
No, no,
Oh, okay.
continue.
Okay.
Sorry.
No problem. Number 8, express your feelings toward others, your family, the family of the person you victimized, etc. The authorities that have worked with you and yourself, or as Lorne would say, against you.
Hmm.
Number 9, discuss what you now can do if or when you find yourself in a risky situation. Number 10, express how you feel about what you've done. Number 11, express your commitment to change and the need for this to remain an active, ongoing process. This process may involve several revisions to your letter before being approved by your therapist. Okay, so there's many different steps here that Lorne is supposed to be going through in order to write this. This looks like a pretty big assignment.
Hmm. Right.
It could be probably a page at least for each question, I would say.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. This should be quite a lengthy letter if he follows the instructions here. And it should be pretty easy to do. You go one step at a time.
Yes.
And then once that's done, move on to the next.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see if Lauren will follow the very clear instructions here, or if he's just going to babble on about how he was messed up at the time and, put specific emphasis on number 6, what the crime has cost him.
Yes. I was thinking
That's
that
what I
too
think.
when I read it. I was like, "Oh yeah, well he can talk about that. That's for sure. Cost him
Hmm.
a lot."
I also want to say this is not important to the subject at all,
Hmm.
but look how dirty that paper is.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And
Is
that
that
is something I noticed as well. Points off for messiness.
Yeah, it looks like grease from a cheeseburger or
I
something.
think it's coffee.
It's probably coffee, but it looks like it's like started to mildew or something. It's
These are
disgusting.
old. These are
Hmm.
old. I don't know if this one, no, this one doesn't have a date on it, just a little scribble there. But I think possibly the earliest date that I saw on any of the signatures from a counselor is 2014.
Oh
So
wow.
he's been holding on to these for a really long time. I'm sure.
And
Go ahead.
why? I mean, we know he's a hoarder, but
Yeah.
why hang on to this stuff? Is this in his box of material from the sting, and in there with all the information on perverted justice that he acquired and copies of his lawsuits and all that? He just throws it all together in a box and spills coffee on it. And
Well, I think that this is the stuff that he has to take with him to class, or when he was in class, he had to take
oh,
with him. I think that he had one of those clipboards that has, I don't know, it's like thicker, and then you can open the top of it, and you can put papers inside as
hmm.
well. It's got a compartment. I want to say that that's the setup that he had for these.
Okay. Well,
So all of these would have been in there. And I think that while he was going through the class, he still had to take those with him.
that makes
That's what I think
sense.
anyway. Yeah. So we've all seen the condition of the outside of Lauren's home, but the inside isn't much better.
Hmm.
So the kitchen table just has all kinds of stuff on it. Things that don't
It
belong there, that's for sure.
Yes, like foot fungus cream and ashtrays full of cigarette butts and all kinds of stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
paperwork.
Yeah. So definitely a lot of spilling. Definitely a lot of
Hmm.
spilling going on there. Yeah. So points off for that for sure. So let's take a look at this first page. Now it's tough to read just because it's a little bit faded, but we'll see what we can learn about what Lauren would love to say to himself. This letter is being written to help you understand why you acted the way you did so that you never repeat the behavior again. At the time, you had a major problem with not being able to say no to people. I have a major problem with that, with that sentence right there, because I can see exactly where this letter is going. All right, let's see. This problem brought you to the point where you couldn't think straight and eventually talk dirty to what you thought was a 13-year-old girl and even expose yourself to quote unquote her naked on webcam, then eventually going to the Sting house to meet her. You said sexual things to this quote unquote girl that no minor should hear. This behavior has made you be convicted of a crime and spend time incarcerated and caused negativity on the internet toward you, has made you want to hide from the public and left you on probation entitled as a sex offender. I feel terrible for the person I victimized. Though there was no actual victim, if there had been a victim, my actions would have left a scar on her for a long time and maybe even life emotionally. Why maybe?
Well, because maybe not, because she was going along with it. It's not like Lauren was forcing her to do anything. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's kind of what he's getting at.
Yeah.
Like, not, it is absolutely just inherently harmful to do this to a kid no matter what. Um, in his mind, it's almost like, well, it's not like I held anybody down and didn't,
I
force her
know.
like she
Yeah.
wanted it.
That's exactly what he's thinking. Yeah.
Hmm.
The only person you have to blame is yourself for not being able to say the word no.
Okay, so that was number 5. That those two lines right there, that one sentence is, it must be number 5 on the list here of take full responsibility for your
Yes.
behavior.
Uh huh.
But he doesn't. The only person you have to blame is yourself for not being able to say the word no. Nope, that's not what you should blame yourself for, stupid.
Mm-hmm.
He's to blame because he had, perverted fantasies about a child, and he acted on them.
Mm-hmm.
And he, tried to take advantage of this girl's youth. It has nothing to do with saying the word no, unless the only way this could possibly be, have any truth to it is he's the one to blame because he didn't say no to himself. No, I'm not going to talk sexually to a kid even though I want to. I'm not going to show her myself naked even though I want to.
Yeah.
That's what he should have said no to.
Yeah, absolutely. Amber has said that all the time, that the
Hmm.
only person Lauren can't say no to is himself. And
Yeah.
that's true. That's absolutely true. He's extremely selfish. And so, of course, he's not going to say no to himself. And I find it interesting that he always puts that in cap letters with an
Hmm.
exclamation point.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah, you got to emphasize that.
emphasize that. Yeah, I couldn't say no. I couldn't say no. I know how to
Well,
say no now.
oh, do you? Did you know how to say no to Rhoda?
No, not
You know,
exactly.
right. Again, and this goes back to him saying that the only reason that he talked to Kayla the way he did was because he thought that's what she wanted. It
Yes.
wasn't because he wanted to,
Mm-hmm.
for his own deviant, perverted reasons. She wanted him to talk to her like that,
Yeah.
and he would do anything that she wanted just to keep her from leaving him because he felt so low, he felt so vulnerable and lonely, and blah blah blah. So he hasn't taken any responsibility. I mean, shocker.
I
Like,
know.
nobody is surprised. But it must be so frustrating for the treatment provider to read this and think, say, no, Lauren, you're not getting it at all. This little girl, if you read the child, like, she did not want to hear you say those things. And that's not why you were saying them.
Mm-hmm.
How hard is it to admit this is what I wanted? But he just can't.
It's impossible for him to. Yeah.
Hmm.
Because if he were to do that, then he is a sex offender.
Right.
And he's just like all the others that are in the class. And more specifically, he's like every other person on the show. And I think that he does differentiate himself from them. And it's for stupid reasons, of course, because he thinks that he was trolled. He thinks that he was followed by Xavier and they really coerced him into going there when he didn't want to. He were vulnerable, right?
Hmm.
That's something he would
Yeah.
say. Um, so to him, he thinks that these other people did want to do what they said that they were going to do. They didn't have the same experience as him. And he said that, and this is an exact quote, but he said something to the effect of, those other people did things before. I never
Hmm.
did anything before.
Right. Which we know is not true.
No, we absolutely know that is definitely not true. And
Hmm.
also, when it comes to the others on the show, how would he know that? He doesn't know
Right.
every other person that's ever been on To Catch a Predator. There's no way.
No. Yeah, I'm sure there were plenty of guys who took this was their first opportunity, and
Mm-hmm.
they took it.
Right.
And ultimately, it doesn't matter. Even if that was true, and all the other predators on the show had done this before, it what does that have to do with Lauren? It doesn't matter. They all did it,
Yeah.
including Lauren. So he doesn't get extra points because, again, might have been the first time that he had the opportunity to target a young girl. We know it wasn't his first
Mm-hmm.
opportunity, but even if it was, that doesn't make him look, better than anybody. They're all there for the same reason.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing the mental gymnastics that he will do in
Mhm.
order for him to come out on top.
Yeah, no, and I think you're totally right. The reason he differentiates himself from the other guys who got caught in this thing is because in his mind, those guys were behind the wheel of their situations with
Mm-hmm.
with the kids.
Right.
They were the ones running the show.
Yeah.
In Lauren's situation, he was just being, he's just like floating in the wind like a little dandelion puff, and perverted justice is running the show. They lured him.
Mm-hmm.
He was vulnerable, and they knew that. So they targeted him and lured him and coerced him into doing something that he didn't even want to do.
Yeah.
He even said in his lawsuit, or maybe it was a phone call, I don't know, he said somewhere, um, they just had to put that 13-year-old girl right in front of me. They knew I was vulnerable. They just had to put her there. It's like he's literally saying, it's like putting, cheese on the mousetrap,
Mm-hmm.
luring the mouse in, without realizing that what he was saying is that he could be lured by a 13-year-old girl,
Right.
somebody who is not, doesn't have like pedophilic tendencies or thoughts or whatever. You can put 113-year-old girls in front of them, and it's not going to entice them. You
Yeah.
have to have that interest to begin with in order to even be lured.
Exactly. There were many, many people in the chat room that day with Kayla, with
Right.
Kimmy and Disney Girl. And I'm
Hmm.
sure that they were never contacted. Or even if they were, as soon as they said their age, they didn't talk to them anymore, which is exactly
Well,
what Lauren should have done, but he didn't want to.
right. Well, it's like he said, I felt bad for her. Nobody was talking to her. Maybe because she was a 13-year-old girl in an adult chat room, and you're not
There you go.
supposed to talk
Right.
to a 13-year-old girl.
Right, exactly. And maybe they thought this is definitely a trap.
Hmm.
That's definitely something they could be thinking too. But yeah, Lauren, nope, he's gonna walk right into it. He's gonna
Yep.
walk right in. Yeah, but he couldn't say no. She just was begging for it, wasn't she?
Which is, I feel like it should have been like mandatory in the class to make him reread his chat log and like do like in chapters almost. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
all right, Lauren, your assignment today is to read day 15 of the chat log, and then, do an assignment on it. Write about what you did wrong and how you were the one who was, leading the conversation. I understand that they probably wouldn't do that because they wouldn't want him to like relive the
Yes.
crime,
Uh huh.
because yeah, he could get some kind of like, you know, I don't know, sexual gratification from that.
Yes.
So I do understand that, but I think it would have gone a really long way. Well, maybe it would have been helpful in getting him to take responsibility if he's confronted with all these things. No, Lauren, you said this and she said that.
Yeah.
So she wasn't running the show, you were. But that also would have taken, well, he's been in the class for 10 years. So,
Right. He definitely could have done it by now. And what would have been great is if they would have had the role play assignment and
mhm.
Kayla is just cycled out to a different person, but Lauren always had to be himself.
That would have been great.
Yes, exactly. The mumbling that he would have been
Hmm.
doing to get through this. Be like, I'm sorry, we can't hear you in the back. Lauren,
Hmm.
you're going to have to speak up and enunciate.
Oh, yeah, it's like when he was reading the chat log with you, and
Mm-hmm.
he would get to, um, the more incriminating bits. One of my favorite parts of it was when he was telling Kayla how much he wanted to have a baby with her,
Mm-hmm.
and he said in this like very mumbly, like with his chin touching his chest, like when he was talking to Chris Hansen at the Sting House, he said, "Oh my God, Kayla, I want you to be the mother of my baby so bad it's not even funny." So humiliating.
I know. He can't even bring himself to say the stupid things that he says. He just can't. It's crazy. Ugh. So we have a little bit more here. So let's see what else he has to say. This crime has cost you your good name. That's interesting. Standing with society, family's feelings, and a dream that you've had ever since you were a little boy and wanting to become a country music singer.
Oh, isn't that interesting too? That he can't just accept or admit that he did not have the talent or the willingness to put in the work to become a successful singer.
Mm-hmm.
His dream was shattered just because he got caught in this thing. And if he hadn't, he would have really made it big, and he'd be a big star now.
I think he really believes that.
Hmm.
He does. You know,
That's
even when
great.
he was talking about Miranda Lambert and what a
Yeah.
ridiculous thing he said about that, and that if he hadn't screwed up, he would have had a chance with her.
Hmm.
That is delusion that I can't even comprehend, you
Hmm.
know? It's the most ridiculous thing. I'm trying to think the type of person who would say something like that. Like how old would they be? You know, I think even as a young person who would be daydreaming about their favorite celebrity or whoever, I don't think that they actually think that it's a possibility that, oh, well, yeah, someday I'm going to be with them. I mean, the real nutty ones will.
Hmm.
We do see them sometimes when they're breaking
Yeah.
into their homes and things like that. But for someone to actually say, and he's not laughing when he says it. He's not like, oh
Hmm.
yeah, I know for sure. I would definitely be with her right now, in a sarcastic way because that's ridiculous. He really means it, and I think that is absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, you know what it reminds me of? Lauren reminds me of a teenage girl in a ton of ways. And in that particular example, it's like when a 12-year-old girl is going to like a One Direction concert
Mm-hmm.
and she gets really like dressed up or yeah, I guess just like it tries to, I don't know, do her hair really well because she thinks that, the boys are going to notice her
Yeah.
in the crowd, and has some fantasy about like, dating them or something. That's what it reminds me, because when you're, young, you're stupid. Kids think dumb things like, oh, I can catch the eye of Harry Styles if I do my makeup right at the One
Right.
Direction concert.
Right.
That's kind of Lauren here, and he just can't admit ever that anything is his own fault, or just because he lacks something as a human being. He's not attractive to women.
Mm-hmm.
The reason he's never had a serious relationship isn't because he is a loser or he's weird or he's unattractive or any of that. It's because Paula damaged him so badly. Or it's because he wasn't ready for a long-term relationship. It's never just like, yeah, I don't know, it's kind of awkward and I was kind of shy around women and didn't really put myself out there and nobody liked me. Like, just be honest with yourself. And I
Yeah.
guess that's the root of it. He can never just be honest with himself.
No. No. I don't even think that he can see it. I don't even know that he's necessarily denying it in a way. I don't even think it's something that he thinks about, and
Hmm.
just because, like, that makes him feel bad. He doesn't want to think nobody
Right.
likes me. I don't have women because they don't like me. So he puts on this act of saying, oh yeah, I messed up. That's why. I don't want to talk
Hmm.
to women because I made a mistake in Nashville and now I'm tainted forever. Um, yeah, I don't think that he just is talking himself into that. I think he really believes it. And
Yeah,
that's why
I
it's
think,
funny.
right. I think it's like a self defense mechanism almost that is so deeply ingrained. Like you said, it's too like painful for him to admit, even to himself, that he can't get a woman,
Yeah.
or that he's unattractive. So he puts on that front even to himself. Like he's convinced himself that he's desirable, and he'd
Yeah.
have no problem getting a woman. We've heard him say that before to
Oh,
the
yeah.
catfish.
All the
I have
time.
no problem getting a beautiful woman. I've never
Mm-hmm.
had one, but I have no problem with it.
Or he'll
In fact,
say, go ahead, sorry.
I was just gonna say he, with the Jamie stuff. I think he said to Casey, the newest Casey, that he's had women as beautiful as Jamie before. He's had hotter girlfriends than
Of
Jamie.
course, yes. And
Yeah.
that's what I was going to say as well. Or he will say, "You think you're the only beautiful woman I've ever been with?"
Hmm.
That's always a classic. It's like, well, Lauren, you're not with anybody now, and you weren't with anybody then either.
Hmm.
So yeah.
He actually said that Paula was more attractive than Jamie. And
Mhm.
anyone who's seen the pictures of the Jamie character,
Yeah.
um, knows that that's just not true. That woman is more attractive than 99.9% of the world. That's why
Sure.
she is a model. That's why she has a following on, I don't know, Instagram or whatever, wherever she has a following, because she's unnaturally and unusually attractive. Um, but Lauren insisted that no, Paula was way hotter than Jamie, and I think Casey was real curious about that, so she actually found a picture of Paula and sent
Mhm.
it to Lauren.
Uh-huh.
And when Lauren was confronted with that, he said, "Oh well, she used to be way hotter. Like she didn't used to look like that." So he still just couldn't admit, okay, maybe she wasn't quite as beautiful as Jamie, because like who is?
For sure.
Yeah, no, he had to keep it going.
He did. He had to keep it going. That's funny. But it's funny too that he has this dream that he's had since he was a little boy and wanting to become a country music star. That in itself is so childish.
Yes.
How many people, when they were kids, have these aspirations of being famous, of being an
Mhm.
actress, a singer, a professional athlete, and they're just kind of these dreams. And they fade away because reality takes over
Yeah.
usually. And you do have, some people make it, but they're the very select few. And some people do make it by just happening to be randomly discovered somewhere. I hate to bring
Mhm.
him up, but Justin Bieber, I think,
Mhm.
was discovered on YouTube, wasn't he?
Right. I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's things like that, or they have an actor who was a waiter somewhere, and somebody just happened to see him, and to I think hang his hat on that and still hold on to that today when there's been nothing that's happened ever since. He is a middle-aged, paunchy, short truck driver who smokes
God.
3 packs a day,
Mhm.
doesn't have the look at all that would have any kind of stage presence. And I know that's not everything.
But it's something.
It's something. He doesn't even have that.
Mhm.
He doesn't have the talent, the raw talent. Not even talent that can be polished.
Mhm.
Because you can see it on shows like American Idol, and I had seen it, just a couple of times, like at the very beginning when they find somebody who's good, but they need some work, whether it's on their look or just on certain things about their singing, and a lot of those talent shows I think have that. That's why they get matched up with like a mentor or whatever. But
Mhm.
there's some kind of polishing, but they already have something that makes them
Yeah.
special. And for Lauren, he doesn't have that. He's a karaoke singer. Is he the worst singer that I've ever heard? No, he's not.
Mhm.
He isn't. I hate to say that. I don't know how many people clicked off the video right now just
Yeah.
based on that. But he's not the worst. I would never pay to go and see him or purchase music from him, like never. That would never
Mhm.
happen. But he's not the worst. I have seen people, I'm thinking of one person in particular,
Yeah.
someone who would do karaoke. She was just this fearless woman who, you can say fearless, but also maybe doesn't have any self awareness either.
Hmm.
But she was the type that she was into karaoke. She was into trying out for professional dance teams when she's not a dancer. She's a middle aged woman who looks like one.
Hmm.
And she will go out there with a bunch of 20-year-olds who have been dancing for years and be like, yeah, I understand that you're a professional team that's looking for dancers, and I'm going to be one of them. Okay. So I'm going to try out with everybody else. And you're like,
Wow.
wait a second. And I've seen her karaoke as well. And it's embarrassing. You
Oh my
know, it's
God.
it's so cringy, but she loves it, and she will
Hmm.
put herself out there. All of the things that everyone else would be embarrassed to do, who would have any type of self awareness to look at their own level of talent and say, you know what, I'm going to sing in the shower instead. I'm going to sing in my car instead. I'm not going to get in front of people. Um, but I would think about somebody like her who's worse than Lorne. Lorne has his 5 songs that he likes to sing. They're not great. He screams and yells and all that kind of stuff. But I think if he were to do karaoke, I think that if you didn't know who he was, you wouldn't necessarily say that he's the worst person you've ever heard.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think he's certainly not good, but again, yeah, he's not the worst.
Right.
But you think about all the people who have amazing talent. Like go on YouTube, for example, and there are thousands of people that are really good and
Yeah.
they never make it big.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
It takes something really special. It takes a special set of circumstances also, I think, and like in order for them to be discovered, to
Yes.
know the right people, to know how to go about um, sort of promoting and building that career. And it takes a lot of hard work and a lot of what's the word? Um, Discipline, like self-discipline. And Lauren has none of that. He doesn't have the work ethic. He doesn't have any self-discipline at all. I mean, the best example, of course, is he smokes 3 packs a day.
Yeah.
It's your dream to become a singer and you can't even quit smoking or even cut it back to like a reasonable number of cigarettes per day.
Yeah.
Get yourself down to half a pack or something. Holy shit, 3 packs a day is crazy. And
Right.
that directly impacts his ability to sing. That, you know what I'm saying? Like if it was so important for him to be a good singer, then that would be the most important thing, is not smoking and like improving, learning to do better. It's like when he talks about, oh, I could hit those notes just like Steve Perry. I could hit those notes
I
just like
know.
Journey. What notes, Lauren? Do you even know what the notes are? I mean, I don't know what they are, but I'm not trying to be a star. You know what I mean? Like he
Yeah.
doesn't know anything about music except, shouting the lyrics to a song.
Right. Yeah, that is the funny thing too. And I also think that he uses those types of things like his smoking and not really trying all that hard as a way of saying that this is still his dream. I think
Hmm.
that if he were actually rejected, if he did quit smoking, if he did take lessons, vocal lessons, and if he did get, sorry about that, my dog just came barreling in the door. Um, if he did hook up with musicians and people who will offer studio time, and if he was really grinding and trying to make things happen, and he got nowhere, I think that would be a lot more painful than for him to say, yeah, well, I could actually do it if I just quit smoking. It'd be all fine. I'd be famous. and
Yeah.
I would definitely be a star at this point. So yeah, I think that's a lot easier. It's a lot an easier of a pill to swallow.
Yeah, I agree. Of course, it's another excuse. It's because I got to quit smoking. I'm never gonna do it.
No.
But I mean, just how ridiculous to say this is my dream, my lifelong dream to
Yeah.
be a singer. I'm not going to
Yeah.
do anything to achieve it.
No. I'm just going to say it. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I think it's funny to hear where he said it cost his good name. He did not have a good name when he left.
Yeah, this revisionist history or whatever you call it is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
What good name. I mean, and he said that before. Somebody asked him, like, who is the golden child in your family? And he said, oh, well, me, before I fucked up, I was the golden child. Why? What did you ever do?
Right.
You know, what did he ever do to make his mother proud of him? Nothing.
I mean, that's certainly evident when she had to go into court and talk about
Yeah.
him as a character witness. She didn't have anything to say.
Hmm. Yeah, he bought her a refrigerator or something.
Right. Right. And not only
Yeah.
that, I think it was a freezer, like one of those,
Hmm.
maybe those freezers. Um,
Yeah,
Not only that, but he also told everybody about it
of course.
because,
Yeah.
of course, he wanted to get the credit. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's quite literally the only thing that he ever did.
Hmm.
Aside from that, he's just taken her money. He's created a ton of stress for her.
Hmm.
That hearing that news must have been absolutely devastating of him getting arrested.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't even imagine finding that out about your son because it's your son. Like you have to love him.
Hmm.
No matter what. It's and then just to live with that. I absolutely felt so bad. I've always felt so bad for the families of the guys caught on To Catch a Predator.
Hmm.
And then not only that, not only him being arrested for that, sort of infamy following the sting, all the 5 years he spent in prison, and she had to take his collect phone calls and send him money and write him letters and dig up shit on perverted justice. Wasn't he like trying to have her research perverted justice? She paid for his lawsuits to be filed, which was a good chunk of money. I think it was like, I don't know, $600 or something. Like it was in the hundreds of
Oh wow.
dollars that she paid for those bullshit lawsuits. Just having to be like his only emotional support because nobody else would talk to him while he was in prison. I'm
Yeah.
sure nobody else wanted anything to do with him. So she would get letters from him every day. Some of them went unopened
They
as
sure
he,
did. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And then for her to even have to show up to court to speak on his behalf the last time he went to prison was is it's just awful. I mean, if he loved his mother even a fraction as much as he says he does, then he would have said, "No, mom, I don't want you to have to come to court and stand up in front of a judge and everybody else in the courtroom," which can't be a comfortable thing to stand up and try to speak up for your son when you have nothing positive to say about him.
Right.
He should have said, "Stay home, mom. I'm fine. I'm a big boy. I'm a man. I fucked up and I'll bear the consequences of it." But no, he had her go all the way there and have to stand up and read whatever, bullshit that he wrote for her to say.
I know.
And which most of it was like, I have to pay his bills while he's in here, and that sucks. Can you let him out so I don't have to pay his bills anymore?
Exactly. I know. It had nothing to do with him. She has nothing nice to say. Nothing
Hmm.
at all. It's really crazy. So yeah, for him to say that it cost his good name when he ran away because of what he did with Betty, and
Hmm.
not only that, but he had a terrible name prior to that based on the other customers that he worked with.
Right.
So that
Yeah.
is so silly for him to
Yeah, I
even
know.
say. Yeah.
And we talked about this last video, but the fact that he says he went to Nashville to, make his dream come true to be a country singer is such bullshit anyway. We know he ran away.
He did,
He ran
yes.
away from his responsibility to Betty. Um, and you're right, his name was Trash long before this happened
Mm-hmm.
anyway.
Yeah. So, as far as standing with society, okay, he wasn't a registered sex offender before, so I guess
Hmm.
it was better before that happened. And then family's feelings, we know that things fell apart. And we're going to be hearing more about his family in later assignments too. Maybe
Hmm.
we'll get a little bit of an insight there. And then, of course, we have that dream. So just really ridiculous costs that he's saying. Um, I don't know. We're going as we go through these. We're gonna, I think, notice some things. Obviously, the way that Lauren thinks, but one of the takeaways that I had from this was that these are supposed to be critical thinking assignments. It's
Hmm.
really supposed to get down in there into your thoughts, your emotions, and he's supposed to be writing to the guy who was 36, about to be 37, and he's in that apartment and he's committing his crime, getting ready to go and see her. He's supposed to be writing, and these things here are the most important to him. And what I think I is important as well is when it says here, he uses the most words to explain this country music career
Yeah.
over everything
Yeah.
else.
Like you know, a realistic way of thinking would have been like cut out the country music shit entirely because that was never going to happen anyway. But this has it's cost him um, the ability to live wherever he wants to
Hmm.
because he can't be within a certain distance from a school or a daycare or a park or whatever. It's cost him employment opportunities because some people don't want to hire a registered sex offender. Plus, there's the fact that he has to take this class, and that has to happen during like normal working hours.
Yes.
So I think he said there are jobs that he couldn't take because he had to have the day off or whatever time off in order to take this class. Those would have been realistic things to say that it has cost him.
Yeah.
And yeah, he just glosses over it, like his family's feelings, for example. In what way? What feelings? Your family being ashamed of you, being disgusted by you, not trusting you anymore, especially the brother who let Lauren look after his little girls.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to delve into that at all. Those are the important things that you'd think that he would have mentioned or even thought about.
Hmm. And the way that he's saying this, he's including this as what it's cost him, as if the feelings of the family, the way that they felt about him was stellar before.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
this is the only reason why. I mean, it's a good reason.
Hmm.
I think that, depending on who he is in relationship to you and the family, I'm sure there are plenty who wanted nothing to do with him after. And it would make
Yeah.
sense. It would make sense. And that is something that really upsets Lorne. He cannot accept that there are people in his family who won't talk to him anymore, who abandon him essentially. And he does look at that as abandonment, not cutting
Hmm.
him out of their life because they don't want him included because of what he's done. They cannot see him the same anymore. But because they felt so great about him before, and they're selfish and they can't forgive. And when you're family, you're family. And that's not true for everybody.
Yeah. I think he said about his brother Ralph, I believe. He said something like, Ralph won't talk to me, but it's just because he doesn't want to look bad. Like, he doesn't want to look bad to his wife's family or
Mm-hmm.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not because he is disgusted with Lauren. and just doesn't want to have a person like that in his life. It's just because he's concerned about his image to other people,
Mm-hmm.
which is ridiculous.
It
Like, I
is.
think
Yeah.
it's perfectly reasonable to say, "Oh, my brother tried to commit a horrible crime,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't talk to him. I can't look at him. He makes me sick."
Yeah. Yeah. But of course, to Lorne, that's something that he's going to look at as being a victim. You
Mhm.
know, that his family abandoned him when he would have done anything for them.
Yeah.
So, this next part says therapy has helped you mostly in realizing that the reason you fell into this position was because you didn't/couldn't say the word no.
Oh my God. That is,
Well,
I want to throw my phone right
I
now.
know.
That's so frustrating that he took what he took out of therapy is an excuse. That's what that is in his mind. I
Hmm.
only did this because I couldn't say no, and I couldn't say no because I'm just too good of a guy.
Yes.
I'm such a good person. I just want to help everybody. That's what I blame myself for, is being too good.
Yeah, that's
Just
exactly
ridiculous.
right. Yeah, he's so loving. He's such a good guy. He wants to give to everybody that he can't say no. So, no matter what you ask of him, he's going to do it. And it's
Hmm.
your responsibility to know if that's something good for him or not.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah, you're
my
right.
God.
He took an excuse out of therapy. That's it. That's
Hmm.
probably all he needed to hear. They probably were discussing some things about his personality and how he relates to people, about him being a people pleaser, right? I think you mentioned that
Yeah,
before.
I think
Um,
so.
and that's exactly what he took from that, to say, oh, you're right. I just want to please other people so badly that I will throw myself right under the bus. I will lose sight of what's right or wrong or whatever. It doesn't matter. They're asking me, and I can't say no to that.
Yeah.
So if they never asked me, I wouldn't have done this.
Yeah. See that I mean I can imagine how the conversation went. I'm sure Lauren was whining about how his family took advantage of him. He
Mm-hmm.
went on, he was monologuing about the mac and cheese and meatballs and deviled eggs, and I gave I gave my sibling $550 for heating oil, and the therapist is like, "Well, Lauren, you need to learn how to say no. Like you whine about everybody taking advantage of you, but just say no. I
Yeah.
can't do this for you. I can't give you this money, whatever." And he's like, "You're right. Yeah, I couldn't say no. It all comes down to me not being able to say no.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you,
Right.
therapist, for making me understand."
Right.
And isn't that
Exactly.
just a very convenient excuse? I
That's
couldn't say the
exactly what
word
it
no.
is. Yeah, I think you explained it perfectly. Something that they were talking about, this particular instance, about him giving money and the particular feelings that came about of not feeling appreciated or whatever. So they were talking about those instances with his siblings. And he took that you couldn't say no, or you should have said no.
Hmm.
If if you didn't want to just give it to them and let it go and understand that you were helping them in that moment and not wanting anything in return when you actually did, then you should have said no. And he took that and he made himself feel good about it as if this is
Yep,
some type of a virtue. And
exactly.
he took that and he moved it through everything in his life. Everything wrong in his life, in particular this crime, is the result of him not saying no.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
we know that he takes what happened with his siblings and he says it put me in such a bad frame of mind, yada yada. I end up in front of Chris Hansen, essentially, you know, and and so he's using that as an excuse for how he ended up there.
Hmm. Yeah, which again is so frustrating because it's not true. He says the reason he left Maine and went to Nashville to begin with is because his family was just using him so badly he couldn't even think straight. That's not why he left
I
Maine.
know.
He left because he fucked Betty over, and he was afraid of having to pay back $20,000. He was too much of a coward to try to come to some kind of solution, so he ran away.
Yeah.
And again, even within that scenario, I mean, he could say like, my family took advantage of me because they took all the money from Betty's job and then left me. But he gave them the money.
Yes,
It
he
was
did.
his poor planning. I mean, we've been over this. We talked about this last time. But it's so annoying that he just can't admit it.
Yeah.
He'll just go around in circles. And there was a conversation about his family and how they took advantage of him, and he just wanted to do something for them, and he didn't even want anything in return, but they couldn't just give him the meatballs and macaroni. And it's like, well, then you did want something in return.
Yes.
So if you didn't want anything in return and you didn't get anything in return, then what's the problem? You did want something.
You did want, yeah, he wanted something. I think ultimately he wanted to be idolized the way that he
Hmm.
idolizes them. That's what it comes down to. He wanted that love that he never really had, I don't think.
Yeah.
So those little things represented something much bigger. But because Lorne is poor at communicating, he makes a video and says, I spent $750. And he talks about
Yeah.
the mac and cheese and the deviled eggs. And that's why that's so funny, is because
Hmm.
he wasn't talking about what it really meant. And I'm sure everybody can relate to doing things for people and not getting any appreciation. Not necessarily that you're looking for something. If there's no agreement that you're going to be getting paid back, or having the expectation of some grand thank you,
Hmm.
for whatever you did. But there are unappreciative people out there, who just don't say anything, or maybe you feel a little bit slighted, like, oh wow, I really went out of my way to do this for somebody. There's like, okay, and don't really care.
Yeah. I mean, and it's possible that his siblings acted like that, but
Hmm.
I mean, I could see it with them. They were appreciative and they were grateful, and they said, "Hey, Lauren, thanks a lot. Like, you really helped me out.
Yeah.
Thank you for buying me oil. It's the winter. I really needed it. I
Hmm.
appreciate it." But because they didn't make him a meal and like go above and beyond, and like you said, idolize him and kiss his ass over it and act like he was such a huge hero, that's the problem. Like, why isn't just a thank you enough?
No,
You
it
know what I
isn't.
mean? Like, and you're right. I think you're totally right. He wanted to be idolized. He wanted them to you know think highly of him, because I agree. I think he didn't get that. He was the youngest. He was probably really annoying and clingy and needy,
Yeah.
and he's always had this weird, I mean, from what we can see, he's always had this weird, like, need for closeness that's so important to him.
Hmm.
um like, he would talk about munkling onto his sister's leg, for example, or tell the stories of how his sister would comb through his hair and like look for bugs or, or something.
Right, the fly bites.
Yeah, so I don't think that he got a ton of affection
Right.
when he was young.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a whole other topic, but his
Hmm.
mother had a bunch of kids. She was raising them pretty much on her own.
Hmm.
Her boyfriend wasn't like a very fatherly figure. He wasn't super affectionate with Lauren, from what Lauren said, and probably the same with his siblings. So he just wanted them to like kiss his ass and think he was the greatest thing. Because I can
Yeah.
imagine him as a little kid, like following them around and
Hmm.
wanting to be with them all the time. He wanted to impress them.
Yes, definitely. That's why he brought them in to do that job with
Yep.
Betty, and jobs before that as well.
Hmm.
Brought them in because that was going to be something that was going to impress them.
Hmm.
And of course, the idolization part of it, but also I think to be more like them, like to be one of them.
Yes, definitely.
You
I
know.
agree. Yeah. Yeah, I imagine he was always kind of an outsider
Hmm.
with them. And what's interesting is Roy is the only one who's willing to sort of give him that, to give him affection and attention. And like we've heard Roy um, kind of like hype Lauren up in phone calls about.
Yeah.
We've also heard him talk about what a piece of shit Lauren is, but
I guess it depends on the day.
yeah. I mean, we have heard him talk about, oh, my little brother. I used to pick him up and carry him on my back or whatever the
Hmm.
fuck Roy said. And Lauren is just like, fuck you, Roy.
Right.
I don't want closeness with you.
Right.
I want closeness with Lori and Ralph or
Hmm.
whatever.
Richard,
Like,
yeah, whoever.
yeah, it's weird. It's interesting.
It is interesting. Yeah, well, we can talk about it again too, but he does look down on Roy big time.
Hmm.
And he talks about it in one of these assignments. So we'll get there. But
Oh, yes.
yeah, but his family dynamic is very, very interesting. So he continues to talk about them. So he said, "My feelings towards most of my family is still a lot of love, with the exception of a few. There's a few that I am just completely disgusted with still." I think it's
Yeah,
so funny when he uses that word.
I know.
So let's see. The victim, had there been a real one, I would still feel disgust in myself and pain for her. And also, like, I would not be able to pay her enough for the damage I had caused in her life.
Oh, okay,
Interesting.
okay. My feelings toward most of my family is still a lot of love, with the exception of a few.
Uh huh.
What is that in response to? Where's our? Okay, so
Oh, the
oh,
instructions?
it is. Yeah, okay. It is express your feelings towards others, your family, the family of the person you victimized, blah
Mm-hmm.
blah blah. So I was confused there. Like, why is he talking about his feelings towards his family rather than, I don't know, like his the way his family treats him because of
Mm-hmm.
his crime or
Yeah.
something, because that's what this is about. But again, I think that like a more fitting answer would have been, as far as his feelings towards his family, should have been like about, I don't know, I'm ashamed of myself. um I'm ashamed that I put my family through this. I'm ashamed that my mother had to see me on TV trying to commit this crime. Or I don't know, I feel like it's kind of off the mark there to be like, oh yeah, some of my family members are pieces of shit.
Exactly. Yeah. He puts all of the blame on them, how they
Hmm.
feel about him. Crazy. So he said, as for the counselors that have worked with me, I owe a lot of thanks and gratitude for helping me to get my head back on straight and for helping me to sort through my life.
Like what?
I know that he's said that many, many times. Usually after he does something bad, he will say, "Well, I have my head on straight now."
Hmm.
And I don't do that anymore, and all of those things. So yeah, it's interesting that he feels this feels like a final paragraph, like a final statement, like goodbye everybody. I'm all
Yeah.
set now. Thank you so much to everybody who's helped me get the confusion out of my head. I have my head on straight now. So, thank you so much. I'll see you guys never.
Yeah, I'm all better now.
I'm all
You
better
fixed
now. Yeah,
me.
you fixed me. And so he goes on to say, what I can now do in risky situations is identify them and remove myself by saying the word no. So there we have it
No.
once again. Yeah. So that is Lauren's letter to himself.
It sucked. He's so bad at it. Just the
I know.
final one. What I can do now in risky situations is identify them and remove myself. How would you identify them? What
Hmm.
is a risky situation? Like, I think that's what this assignment was calling for like real introspection and examples. And it's all just kind of like vague summaries of things.
Isn't it always, though?
Yes, I know, but I want to like write it for him.
I know.
I want to get like a red pen and correct it for him and write like be specific, give examples, give at least 3 examples. Tell us
Hmm.
how you would go about identifying them and how you would remove yourself from the situation. Because in his mind, a risky situation is that his head is messed up from being taken advantage of by people that he
Exactly.
loves.
Exactly. Yeah. Once again, if you don't do what you do to me, then I won't do this. You will
Hmm.
not be placing me into a risky situation.
Yeah, it's no mystery why he has not passed this class.
You think? You think? You think?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That was basically an apology letter.
Wow.
I feel so sad for you, Lauren. You know, I don't know when he wrote that to himself, but 36-year-old Lauren, I am so sorry, man. Like, you went through so much. You have a shit family and you were taken advantage of. You didn't know how to say the word no. You know how to do that now, buddy. I'm telling
Hmm.
you because I'm you. A little bit down the road, I've had counselors that told me that it's not my fault, that I couldn't say no at the time.
Yeah,
And
but
holy
we
shit, now I know that.
we figured it out
We
with the
figured
with
it
the
out.
help of the counselors. I owe them so much gratitude. They gave me an excuse for why none of this is really my
Yeah,
fault.
exactly. And I like that one. So I'm going to go with it.
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm going to ignore everything else that they've said.
Yeah,
I'm going to
not
go with this one thing. That sounds
yeah,
good.
not once. And I think the first instruction was state why you're writing this letter. Say
Hmm.
and describe the crime. And not once did he say, I committed a crime against a kid because I was attracted to her. I
Hmm.
had sexual fantasies about a kid because I was into that. And I think that's kind of like the main point of it. Like you let your deviant fantasies take over and you tried to act on them. That's why you ended up where you were, Lauren.
Exactly.
Past.
And you were on the internet where you were hidden.
Hmm.
And you felt comfortable letting those things go free so that you
Yeah.
can express them and you can seek them out because you did feel safe. You felt safe in that dank apartment of yours. And even prior to then, not just with Kayla, but when he was talking to Molly and Melissa and the countless other girls that he
Hmm.
targeted. They were targets, not friends, not special girls. They were targets for him to get
Hmm.
exactly what he wanted. And it kept going, and it would still be going today if he hadn't been caught.
Yeah, definitely. And there's no mention of those girls at all
No.
in here. And I mean, the opening paragraph essentially is at the time you had a major problem with not being able to say the word no.
Hmm.
That is just mind baffling to me that he thought that was the answer that they were looking for this assignment.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
what.
also, not that that's the answer that they're looking for, but that's his answer. So he doesn't
Hmm.
give a shit what they're looking for. They're not going
Yeah.
to bring anything out of him, right? How
And
many
he
times
said
does
that
he say
before.
that? Yeah.
Yeah,
You're not going to
definitely.
bring anything out of me. Okay. Well, I guess you're just going to lie to yourself then
And I guess you're going to be in this class for the rest of your
for the
life.
rest of your life. Yeah. I mean, I know his class looks different now.
Yeah, that pissed me off.
I know. I know. I
I
know
mean,
I've pissed a lot of people off.
yeah, from their perspective, like probation's perspective, they were probably like, shit, this isn't working. We need to try something else.
Hmm.
At some point, they're probably thinking, like, man, this is making us look bad. Like, we can't get through to this guy. Let's try something else here.
I'm curious if he's the one that's been in there the longest.
Yeah, I bet. Right? I
And
mean,
I'm,
I don't think she's
yeah.
ever mentioned it, but probably.
Right. And I'm curious who the next longest person is. Did they have 2.5 years? or something
Mm-hmm.
like that, and then there's Lorne.
Well, because I feel like most people could catch on after a few years. Like,
Sure.
even if they don't believe it themselves, just say what they want you to say so
Yeah.
you get out of the class.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
No,
not
he
Lauren.
no, he absolutely refuses. He actively refuses to do that. And
Hmm.
what I think is so great is that everyone can see through it too.
Yeah, well,
You
yeah,
know.
of course.
So so I know that being in the class is something that we can look at as a major inconvenience to Lauren, so therefore it's something good and we want that.
Hmm.
Because again, like you had mentioned before, he's missed out on employment opportunities. He is definitely inconvenienced for having to go to this class. It's not on the weekend. It's not in the evening. It's in the middle of the day on like a Monday or something, or
Yeah.
whatever day of the week. It doesn't matter. Um, but that's something that he cannot get away from as far as employment is concerned, because typically Monday through Friday is the gig, right?
Right.
But I think for him to be in this individual counseling, I can understand that it would be upsetting to people in that it would feel like Lorne is getting what he wants. And ultimately, I think that's what the sentiment of a lot of people in the community is that they do not want him to ever get what he wants. And I get it. I don't want him to either. I
Hmm.
don't think he deserves it. I think of him in the lowest possible way. At the same time, I'm trying to think of this positively for myself and the situation, and thinking that um, he's still not getting what he wants. He's still bound to this treatment. And the one thing that I don't like is that it's a woman.
Yes, totally. So that's what I was just thinking. So first of all, he got out of the class. It feels like a reward for bad behavior because he got
Mm-hmm.
kicked out for letting somebody listen to a class, I believe, on the phone,
Mm-hmm.
and that is a huge no-no.
Absolutely.
And
Oh, yeah.
right. So like they have very strict confidentiality rules in that class.
Yes.
So he got caught doing that. He got kicked out for it, and I feel like he should have gone to prison, but he
Yes.
didn't. Instead, he got put into individual counseling, which is what he wanted. And not only is it individual counseling, it is with a young, attractive woman
Mm-hmm.
in the role of the counselor. So you go from Lauren being in a class full of men with a male treatment provider,
Mm-hmm.
holding him accountable, forcing him to do role plays of his crime or to watch his classmates do role plays of
Other
his crime, which,
guys.
yes, other men, which is, and Lauren has always said, I don't work well with males.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because the men don't baby him and don't, they're not, it's much more confronting to have a man say, hey, Lauren, you were a pedo and we need to talk about it, than to have a woman even say the same thing, honestly,
Mm-hmm.
because we know how Lauren feels about men versus women.
Mm-hmm.
But this particular counselor, from what I understand from what Lauren has said, she is much more gentle with him,
Mm-hmm.
and about him reparenting himself
Mm-hmm.
and the trauma that he suffered as a child.
Mm-hmm.
So and I understand from her point of view, she's like, we got to get past this. You're stuck. You're
Yeah.
stuck here and you need to work your way out of it so you can grow as a person. Like, I get what she's trying to do, but we also know Lauren's mind well enough to know how he's going to take it.
Yeah.
And how he takes it is as an excuse. You had trauma in your past, Lauren, that, he loves to be the victim.
Oh, of course he does. Yeah.
And yeah. So, and I feel like this sort of approach that she's taking, and maybe it'll work better than a confrontational approach from a man. I don't know. I doubt it, but maybe. But yeah, this approach is kind of like okay, sure, you were victimized, you were traumatized. Now let's get past it. But Lauren is going to hang on to the victim thing. I need
Sure.
to reparent myself because I wasn't properly cared for. And that's another excuse for why he did what he did.
No, it is. I understand. I guess I'm just trying to twist it around in my head. I'm doing a Lorne in
Yeah.
my
No,
head.
no, it's good that he's at least still, having to go through this and talk about this. It's a good thing that he's in the class regardless.
Yeah. Well, I
But
think too, I'm also thinking about his psych evaluation, and I'm wondering what his impression of the psychologist that conducted his testing. Do you know if he ever mentioned this woman?
he said that she told him he's not stupid. And I'm not sure what the context of that was.
Mm-hmm.
Like he thought maybe it was an IQ test or something. I don't
Possibly.
know. Um, but he didn't. I can't remember him giving his impression of her, like her in person, the way she spoke to him, or like the way she seemed to view him. Just what she wrote in the psych eval, which
Okay.
was, of course, repeating his self-assessment, and he thought that those were her thoughts. He thought that was her
Sure.
assessment.
Yes. Yeah, I was curious about that because she did not write anything good about him, so
Mhm.
her impression of him is spot on. I love that report.
Yeah.
I think it formalizes things that we've all been thinking, and it put and to have a professional who is well respected, who has a lot of experience behind her. She's an expert in her
Hmm.
field. To sit down with Lorne and be able to put into words that he's dangerous, that he meant to do it, all of the things that we've come away with in listening to him for so long. And to not give him any type of an out. She didn't give him any type of an out. So
Yeah.
I was curious what his impression was of her, and did he walk away feeling good, that she's
Probably.
nice and pleasant,
Hmm.
and the same way that he feels about this counselor. And I guess the one thing that, again, in my way of trying to look at this in a positive way, and in that he's still bound to this treatment, is that they know who they're dealing with. So while we would love to have a guy who's like 6'4", like, big man, sit in front of Lorne and stare him down with some very direct questions. I'm wondering if, as far as what she's getting out of this, what she's learning about him, because she's going to have access to everything that's already happened, his entire file of his
Hmm.
performance in therapy and treatment and probation, and the things that he's written, these assignments, I'm sure. So I'm just really curious if he is, I don't want to say romanticizing, but that may be the right word, because we know how he feels about women and how he sees them, especially when they're younger, attractive, and all of that. But I'm curious if he's feeling good about this person in the same way that he felt good about the psychologist who basically ripped him a new asshole in her report.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, possibly. As far as the psychologist who did the psych eval, I would guess that she came at it with like a very non-judgmental attitude or demeanor towards
Mm-hmm.
him. She was just asking questions, I think, or like
Sure.
having him explain, tell stories, and she probably wasn't contradicting him or confronting him with anything. She was just taking down, just listening, and
Yeah.
asking questions.
Yeah. Conducting
Um,
the
so
test.
he probably did feel right, exactly, connecting it right. So he probably did feel pretty good about it because she wasn't saying, "Well, wait a minute, Lauren. No, no, no. Think about this more. It's not other people's fault," or blah blah blah, whatever you might talk about in counseling.
Mm-hmm.
She's just letting him go on and on. So in his mind, he's probably thinking, oh, she believes me, she agrees with me, she's not telling me I'm full of shit. I don't know how old the psychologist was or what she looks like, and I think that plays a part
I think
because,
so too.
like I
You're
said,
right.
yeah, his counselor, he actually, I think he didn't send a picture. Somehow we saw what she looked like. I
Mm-hmm.
don't remember how. It might have been like she sent Lauren an email, and he then turned around and sent that email to Casey like an idiot. She sent him an email basically telling him not to talk to Casey anymore.
Uh
And he turned around and sent that email to Casey.
huh.
And or he told her that he told Casey something that they talked about in therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And she sent him an email saying, that is a breach of contract. You can't do that. You can't show her any documents I send you or talk to her. Well, I guess he could talk to her, but you can't show her documents or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think on the email, like her little like icon was her a picture of her or something. But I remember she was like younger and blonde and pretty.
Okay.
And that's going to make a big difference for Lauren.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know. I guess unless we knew how she was with him, if we could see their interaction, he could certainly be making it better than what it is. I suppose that's all we can really hope for.
Yeah, he does speak very highly of her. It's like he used to talk about Allie.
Yeah, I
That's
know.
that's how he, yeah, that's how he talks about this therapist. I can't remember her name. Not Ashley. Maybe Ashley. I don't know. But
Yeah.
um, yeah. So I've got to assume that she's pretty gentle with him.
Yeah, she could be. She could be. Oh well. I guess I
Yeah.
guess we'll see what happens with this. But I suppose the silver lining would be is that he's not off the hook. It may
Hmm.
not be what we want it to look like, but he's not completely off the hook to where they say, all right, Lauren, you've been at this for 10 years. We're gonna call it good because we're really banging our heads against the wall here with you. So
Yeah. Well,
it is good at
he
least.
yeah, well, he has to be in treatment. Like
Yes.
that's part of his probation,
Uh-huh.
and he can't be in the class because they kicked him out. They
Right.
don't feel comfortable with him in the class because for two reasons. One, he broke confidentiality rules, but he also they heard a recording of him saying that he wanted to like beat up the guys in the class
Mm-hmm.
or something. So for everybody's safety in both ways, just with their confidential information and their like physical safety, they can't have him in that class.
Yeah.
So they had to figure out something to do.
Well, you know what? When he got
And
thrown out last time because he failed the lie detector test, he went to prison.
hmm
So you're right. He
I
should have
know.
gone to prison
Yeah,
this time.
that was yeah. If you violate the rules of class and you get kicked out of class, then you go to jail
Yeah.
or prison. But I guess this time, I don't know. Last time they had the added crime or probation violation of drinking, I guess. So
Yes, they did. Yeah.
maybe, yeah. So maybe they thought they had a stronger case, to bring it to the judge or whatever. But
At least
I
throw him
would have
in jail
preferred to
for a
see him
couple of days.
or a month, a month.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's go for a month. Not really going anywhere. He's not going to prison. He's just kind of in limbo.
Yeah, here's your punishment. You get. I mean, they do that. Like
Sure.
your punishment for violating probation is a 30-day sentence
Mm-hmm.
in the jail. Because I
Yeah.
think prison is a year or more. If your sentence is over a year, they'll send you to prison. Anything under a year, you go to jail, I believe.
Yeah, as long as you're sentenced. Because there can be people that are in jail for
Right.
years because they haven't gone to trial yet.
Hmm.
Yeah, that makes
Right. Yeah.
sense.
And from what I understand, though, conditions in prison are a lot better than jails
Okay.
in general. Um, yeah, because prison, they're long term sentences, most of them, so they get more um, privileges, I guess. Like I've heard of them having TVs in their
Mm-hmm.
cells in certain prisons,
Yeah.
PlayStations, and
PlayStations.
in jails.
Wow.
Yeah, I heard you could like you have to buy them through the prison. Like you
Okay.
can't. Yeah, if you've got like I don't know, your friend is in prison, you want to buy him a PlayStation, you can't go to Best Buy and buy it and then send
Mm-hmm.
it to the prison. You've
Right.
got to do it through the prison, and it costs a fortune,
Oh,
I
I
guess.
bet. Wow.
But
Well,
yeah.
Lauren went to prison for 6 months. Unless maybe he went because it was a federal
Oh,
thing, so it was
maybe.
less than a year. I don't know. It
Yeah.
was shorter than
I mean, I could be
what it
wrong.
should have been.
Mhm. That was the impression that I always got. But you're right. Maybe it was because it was a federal crime, or I don't know. Maybe they do
Yeah.
shorter sentences in prison.
Well, anyway, so we finished the letter to himself. And so we'll move
Hmm.
on to another one. So this is also a letter that he's writing, of course, on his own behalf, but it's coming from someone else. So at the top here, it says from abuser. So the
Ooh.
instruction is write a letter to yourself from the person who's hurt you either physically, sexually, or emotionally. In this letter, write about what you would like or would have liked this person to say to you. It can be a friend, parent, son, daughter, spouse, significant other, teacher, abuser. So it starts off. So we do know who the abusers with an S are. They're listed at the bottom, but we're going to leave that and we're going to read this first.
Okay.
Do you want to read it, Amanda James, in your Lauren
Am I
voice?
lovers? Okay. I will.
Just the letter part. We'll get to who the abusers are right after that.
Okay. There's no easy way to say how sorry and how wrong I was for treating you like I did. My actions were based on greed, and I never gave any thought to how it would affect it. Oh, sorry. I never gave any thought to how or what effect it would have on you mentally and emotionally. If I could take back all the wrongs I've done to you, I would. I can't take any of it back, though, so the only thing I can do is apologize for my ignorance, greed, and selfishness, and tell you the words you wanted so much to hear at the time. I love you.
And of course, right on this page, we have more coffee.
Yeah. Filthy.
so, so do you want to know who wrote this letter to Lorne, or he would have wished wrote this letter to Lorne? You ready?
I, yes.
Okay. Signed, Lori, Ralph, Paul, and Tony.
Tony. All I can do now is apologize and tell you the words you've always wanted to hear. I love you. That's what he wants to hear from Tony.
Yes, he sure does. He sure does. So, if this letter were to be taken to each of these people,
Hmm.
do you think that they would have co signed this?
I do not. I think they would have said, Lauren, what the fuck are you talking about?
I agree. I agree. I don't think that they would co sign that. I think they would tell Lauren to go fuck himself.
Yeah.
Get out of here, you little fucking baby.
Yeah. Stop being a bitch. You're such a little
You're
bitch.
calling me an abuser? Are you serious?
Yeah. And, it's interesting, like all things that come from Lauren's ridiculous brain, because he's including Lori and Tony as abusers, and he claims that Ralph and Paul are the ones who like sexually abused him. Right? I know Paul was one of them,
Okay.
and I'm assuming Ralph was the other one, or was it? No, it was Richard.
Mm-hmm.
He said it was Richard. He said Richard did that to him too. I remember it from a Ramona call. Why
Mm-hmm.
didn't he include Richard in this letter? Is a good question. Now, so just to be clear, I do think something happened
Okay.
with the brothers. I do.
Okay.
I don't know what exactly, but I think something happened.
Okay.
But it is strange to me that he would include Lori asking him for money and Tony letting him buy the beer with the his two brothers that he says victimized him and did this horrible thing to him when he was a child.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the two, they're just not really comparable. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that he's looking at this list here. These horrific people that destroyed Lauren's life as abusers. He,
disgusting people.
disgusting. He's looking at them as the ones who made his head fall off crooked that he
Yeah.
had to put back on straight. Um, caused all of his confusion. I think that he blames his sister for not being there. I think Ralph as well because of being old, so much older than Lauren. You know, once again, Lauren's the baby of the family, many years younger than these other two who were the oldest.
Hmm.
And what in common did they have with him? He would have just been a little kid. They were off doing their own thing,
Yeah.
you know? So there's that. But then there's also the money situation. So I think that these four here, they're the ones who took the money from him that he gave,
Right.
but he
Okay.
doesn't see it that way. He
They
sees
were
it
part of
as
his crew.
they were part of the crew because I know his sister drove. I
Uh-huh.
think perhaps Ralph was around because remember he was saying that he kind of stood around, didn't really get his hands dirty.
Yes.
That may have been him. And then Paul, I think, was there as well. And then, of course, we've got Tony, who I think is the funniest one out of all of them because remember the story that his mom had to call Tony to get him out of bed and go to work.
I thought she had to go to his house and wake him up.
She may have, you're right. She may have. Tony, could you imagine that? Her going to,
Mama,
yeah,
you're
fine.
supposed to be working with Lon. Get the drunk ass out of bed.
Yes, yes, exactly. So yeah, I think these are the people that Lorne is so angry at this moment when he's writing this letter. And
Wow.
it all goes around money. That's it. That's
Yeah.
it.
No, I think you're right because he didn't tell the story of his abuse to his class for a long time, I think is
Correct.
what he said.
Yes.
So yeah, when he was, wow, I don't know. I would just think that, you know, if I had to, if you had to write a letter to somebody who abused you, that would stand out more than the people who took money. But maybe he just wasn't willing to talk about it in class, and I think that's valid. I really do.
I
That's
agree.
something that, yeah, somebody
I
might want to
agree.
bury and never talk about. So,
Sure. Sure. I mean, there's so many questions surrounding that particular subject
hmm,
that it's difficult to really comment on, you know,
yeah,
because there are so
yeah,
many questions. It's like, all right, I mean, I think something happened. I agree with you. I think something happened. I don't know what it is. I don't
hmm,
know what the context of those things were. I think there was, if I were to speculate, which is all that we can really do, is that things could have happened that neither of them understood.
hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it almost feels weird talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like with Lorne, nothing's really off limits with him because he's so willing to share all this stuff with whatever stranger he's on the phone with.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, he he was a child at the time. It's kind of an uncomfortable topic,
Mm-hmm.
but I agree. I think that's a good way to put it because they were all kids
Yeah.
at the time. So I don't know. I wonder if maybe he didn't even look at it as abuse until, he had gotten much older, and then it was more convenient for him, or just like less painful, less uncomfortable for him to say I was the victim because I was younger,
Mm-hmm.
instead of confronting, that it possibly could have been, like you said, something that neither of them or any of them really understood, because they were all young.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah.
But it is interesting too. I mean, also there are so many things he could have talked about his dad, who was
Hmm.
non-existent. He could have, talked about I don't know, just his friends that abandoned him because he didn't play basketball.
Hmm.
That was obviously something important. Yeah, he really is. He's so hung up at this point and so angry. I think everybody can agree that Lorne was very, very angry when he was arrested.
Yes, but also he was focused on them at this point, because in this context they were the ones to blame for his crime.
Right.
So that's why he was talking about them here. You know what I mean? Instead of
Yep.
thinking about the real things that you could call abuse, like the neglect from his father.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be a valid thing for him to talk about in
Mm-hmm.
this assignment, to write a letter to himself from his dad. I'm sorry I was never there for you. I'm sorry I was a drunk and abandoned you, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but what's important for him to point out are these four, because they are the reason that he was vulnerable in the first place. They were the reason that he went to Nashville and got caught up in this sting.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that they're going to see it the same way.
Yeah.
you
No,
know. But good
I
for
don't
you,
think
Lauren. Good for you to write it all down, get it off your chest, and
Yep,
pretend.
you got the
Pretend.
words,
Yep.
kind of.
I love
Yeah.
you. I love you,
You
Lauren.
I love you.
So now, after this letter comes another letter. And this is actually from Lorne to his abusers. So we're not done with you, Lori, Ralph, Paul, and Tony. May you rest in peace, sir, but you're not done. Okay. Lauren has some things to say. So let's see what Lauren has to say to the ones who hurt him. So here are the instructions. Write a letter to the person who most hurt you in your life. Without taking responsibility off of your own offending behaviors, tell this person, number one, how you feel about what he or she has done. What thoughts do you still have about what they did to hurt you? How these actions, words, etc. have affected you. What you wanted them to do that he or she did not do for you. And where you would like to see things go from here. All right, so we have the same suspects listed here at the
Hmm.
top. And here's what he had to say. I thought long and hard about the things you all have done to me. The way you all used me for money was disgusting and shameful. Although I did everything I could to help you all, it was because I had idolized you all. It was never because I wanted anything back, although appreciation would have been nice. Instead, all I got was more used. It took me a lot of hardship to realize that it was only yourself that you all cared about, not me. I still shake my head today at all of your disgusting actions toward me and would be happy to even get an apology. Instead, I get avoided because none of you, except Tony, has had enough in you to apologize for your hurtful ways. I spent months talking to a psychologist to try and figure out why I let you hurt me this way, with with an extreme amount of tear shedding. Oh my goodness.
I bet he did.
I bet he did. Lauren was shedding those tears. He loves shedding those tears.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh. Let's see. I finally realized that what you did was for your own selfish ways. What do you mean you finally realized?
Yeah, I know. He's just babbling. I finally realized that. It took you months talking with a therapist to realize that. But he said the reason he went to Nashville was because they used him and they were selfish.
Right.
He he said that to Kayla in the chat
He
log.
did. What did he call them? Do you remember?
Uh,
I can't remember what he
no.
said. He kind of made fun of them. I feel like he sort of said that they were stupid or
Yeah.
something
I think
like
he called.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. He said like you can have my dumb siblings or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, exactly. Lol. Let's
Yeah.
see. There was nothing you did that was to help me. Even thought you try to um I can't say what he
Put
said.
it.
Oh, put it off like you did it for my own good. Where I'd like to see this going is an apology from and admittance of your own disgusting. Whoops, let's go to the next.
Disgusting.
Whew, what is he going to say? Behavior so that we can be normal siblings again. Unfortunately, I know that's never going to happen. Period.
Oh, so what stood out to me through all of that? Well, first of all, it's that he loves to call people disgusting. That's like the
He
worst
really is.
insult.
It is, I know.
But he doesn't specify what they did. It's all apologize for your shameful and disgusting actions. Apologize for all the hurtful things you did to me. What did they do?
No one
They
knows.
didn't make you macaroni and cheese?
He idolized them and they
I
just
mean,
used him more and more.
how when he tells the story, it's they used him because he offered to do work on their house, or his sister asked him for money to buy her kids Christmas presents and then didn't reciprocate with homemade meals.
You're
That's
right.
what they did. Or even he could have specified and said, what you did to me on Betty's job by letting me give you the money that I shouldn't have and then not giving it back. I
Yeah.
don't know that, but he can't even put into words how they used him, or what horrible, shameful, disgusting things they did. So I have to assume they'd be like, what are you talking about, Lauren?
Right. I know. Do you maybe they wouldn't have opened this letter either, just like his mom.
Yeah.
Lauren's writing us another letter to tell us what he thinks of us. Okay, we'll
Hmm.
just put that in the recycling pile.
Hmm.
Yeah. No, you're right. He doesn't specify anything. He talks about idolizing them and you used me for money. You were greedy and disgusting. Bottom line.
Oh, yeah. There was that other story he told about how he was buying a house off his brother, and his
Mhm.
brother didn't tell him that he owed something on the house, or
It's taxes.
yeah, some bullshit. And then
Yeah.
there was that whole story about how he built a shack to live in Lori's driveway,
Yes.
and Lori didn't want it there. Who could blame her?
I think I think it was that she started dating somebody or got married or something. I don't know that it was just specifically her. I
Hmm.
feel like maybe there was somebody else involved. I could be getting that completely wrong. Um, but I thought that's what he said.
It could be. I never quite understood that. I mean,
I
that would be
know.
reasonable too for her husband to be like, hey, can you tell your brother to get his shack out of our driveway?
I know
He can't
exactly.
live there.
I know. It's and then didn't he say that Tony and I think his nephew went over and like took it down?
I think so. Yeah, how do you
Oh
say
my gosh.
Tony never did anything for you? He
I
helped you move
know.
the house.
I know. He helped you dismantle your house and drive away with it. The
I wonder
pieces.
if one of the ways Tony abused him was when he kept his pressure washer for too long.
Oh, he was pissed off about that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he was not happy about that.
And how he only paid his mother what, like $50 a month or something for the Kirby vacuum that she got for free that she offered to sell them. That
Um,
was another way.
wasn't that what Lorne was selling? He did the Kirby
Yeah.
vacuum sales.
Hmm.
Okay. So that was
Yeah.
probably his only sale, most likely, right?
Right. Well, no, he said his mother didn't even pay for the vacuum. She got it for free somehow. He didn't. I don't remember him mentioning how, but I'm sure he says those vacuums are $2,000, which I don't believe.
I don't know. I
Um,
don't know anything about Kirby vacuums.
I don't either. I think somebody Googled it once, and like the most expensive Kirby vacuum on the market is like $1,200 or something.
Oh,
But we know
wow.
how Lauren exaggerates. Um,
Yeah.
like with the I did $750 worth of work, and I'm sure that number is enormously
Of
exaggerated.
course.
Yeah. So
My dog is growling so badly. she she doesn't like when I talk about Lauren.
yeah,
That is
she
for
hates
sure. She
Lauren.
hates Lauren so much. Um. So yeah. So this letter is once again just babbling. You know, like you had said,
Hmm.
it's just babbling. Um. So now we have one more that we can go to, and this one is upsetting. This one is more frustrating, I think, to me than when he says, I couldn't say no.
Hmm.
All right, so you ready?
Yes.
Okay, so let's take a look at a letter to Lorne from Kayla. So this is a letter from the person you victimized, and at the top, he has Kayla. So here's what he has to say from her perspective. And we're going to talk more about Kayla because there are other assignments that pertain to her. But we put this in here because we did all the other letters too. So we may as well just take them all at one time. So what Kayla has to say, according to Lauren, is, I felt terrible at the time you were abusing me. I felt like the only thing I was good for was for sexual reasons. I've learned through time that the reason you must have done that was because you were, for some reason, feeling unwanted at the time.
Hmm.
Now, I want to pause there for a moment. When I read this, I I got a little bit of a thought pop in that perhaps that was a little bit of an admission
Oh, okay.
of being unwanted
Hmm.
because he's never said that before.
Oh, I see. Feeling unwanted, like in a romantic way,
Right,
because
like
he. Yeah, I get what you mean.
yeah, like he can't get a woman.
Hmm.
So therefore, she was going to be getting his attention.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I just heard it, I assumed he meant felt unwanted, like his family didn't love him. He didn't have anybody.
Mhm.
But I mean, that could be true.
I want it to be true.
Hmm.
So let's go with that. Let's just go with that. My
Okay.
feelings about you today. Um, let's see. My feelings about you today are confused as I don't know all the facts of what you had at hand for problems. But I think that it would be hard for me to ever talk to you again without thinking of the past. And I'm just going to finish this. What I would like to see happen is for you to get yourself to where you never do again the things you did to me and to have a good life.
Hmm. Okay, you're right. That is incredibly frustrating. And if I were rape class teacher, what I would say to Lauren is, okay, Lauren, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of a victim. I want you to imagine yourself as a young boy and a 36-year-old adult did to you what you did. Would you be saying, I've learned throughout time that you must have done that because you were feeling unwanted at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and my feelings about you are confused because I don't know all the facts of what you had at hand for problems. Like, I don't know how bad your problems were. So if they were bad enough, then it would kind of excuse the fact that you tried to sexually abuse me.
Yeah.
But I just don't know. So, I mean, he's supposed to be in the mind of his victim right now, and obviously he can't go there because he's an idiot. But instead, he's still writing it like from his own perspective.
Yeah.
Like, well, I kind of feel bad for you, Lauren, because your head must have been so screwed up at the time for you to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing about her feelings, about what it did to her and her life and how it affected her in those very like important formative years. It's all just how she feels about him and his struggles,
Exactly.
which is insane.
Exactly.
My
Yeah.
God.
It's interesting to me as well. It doesn't surprise me, but it's
Mhm.
interesting that he writes this letter from a victim who would have been traumatized by him, and he doesn't acknowledge that at all.
No.
He writes this in the most gentle way possible.
Mhm.
Of course, we know that a victim is going to work through and process their trauma in many different ways. I'm sure that there are people who would write something like, I don't want you to ever do this again, and you need to move on. I'm sure that there are people. It would be difficult to find them, I think, because I think of this in a couple of different ways. Number one, it's offensive as hell that he lacks so much empathy. He has nothing, nothing at all, except
Yeah.
for to view other people and want other people to view him as the victim. Lauren, there must have been something going on with you that made you do this to me. It's not because you're a pig.
Right.
Can't be. It's got to be something else. What happened to you, Lauren? I don't have all the facts, but please tell me so that I understand what was happening to you that was so difficult that it put you in a position that you hurt me. You didn't want to do it. I know
Mhm.
that because something must have happened that made you.
Right.
How pathetic is this?
It's like in Taken Abroad when the woman who was about to be murdered, while watching him dig her grave, she looked at him with pity. Something really bad must have happened to that character to make him turn into a serial killer who wanted
Mm-hmm.
to kill her. The lack of empathy is scary. First of all, if I read this as the treatment provider, I'd be like, "Holy shit, man! I don't even know if I'm equipped to handle this."
I know.
Who cannot? He didn't not one mention of the way it affected her
Mm-hmm.
and how it hurt her, how it made her feel, how it's affected her life. It's just all about him being the victim.
Yeah.
It's it's shocking. I mean, I agree. I'm not surprised that this came from Lauren. I wouldn't expect different from him, but it's
Yes.
still shocking that he can think this way and actually wrote this down and thought that they'd be like, yeah, good job, Lauren. Good job. You're really putting yourself in the mind of your victim there.
I mean, he did sign off on it.
I know, I saw that.
Yeah.
What are you thinking, treatment provider?
I
This is
know.
awful.
I know. Well, I mean, he did complete the book, right? He talks about that all the time, how he
Hmm.
completed the book. And they still wouldn't let him out. So I think that, all right, they signed off on it because he completed it,
Yeah.
technically. He wrote it down. He shared it with the class. They did whatever they needed to with it. So he signed off on it, but he wasn't able to pass go and get out. He
Yeah, I
wasn't
think this
successful.
yeah, I think this letter is enough to keep him in that class. This one assignment alone would be enough to keep his stupid ass in
Yeah.
that class.
Yeah, I
All he
agree.
said is I felt terrible at the time you were abusing me.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
I'm sure they've talked exhaustively about how it affects kids who are victimized. I'm sure they've gone into statistics and like all that shit. You know what I mean? Like that's the
Absolutely.
purpose of the
Yes.
class, to explain the harm that you're doing
Mm-hmm.
to these kids. And all he could think about was her making excuses for him. I saw in another, I mean, I don't want to jump ahead to other assignments, and I can't even remember which one it's in anyway,
Mm-hmm.
but he does at some point say, like the assignment is for her to describe her feelings about him. And one of the feelings is possible guilt at suspect going to prison.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some victims do feel guilt about their abuser going to
Sure.
prison. But that's often, I mean, that's for the victim to deal with. You know what I mean? Like, that's for
Exactly.
them to work through. It's not for the abuser
Exactly.
to point out or to even think about it. It has nothing to do with them. And I think in the case where, like, I don't know, a child is abused by their father or
Mm-hmm.
something, that's a complicated situation, that
Sure.
there's a whole relationship there. So I'm sure that's a common thing for
Yeah.
kids to well, especially kids, any person, but especially kids to go through. But in Lauren's case here, this was, pretending that Kayla is real. She was just a little girl that he talked to on the internet. They didn't have any kind of relationship where she would feel guilt about him going to prison for abusing her. They'd never even met. They talked on the phone 3 times.
Right.
It's unreasonable to expect that she should feel good. And I think that he wanted her, or would have wanted her, to feel guilt about that.
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, in a much smaller way. He's brought up those types of things before when he would be drinking and driving. And it was pointed out to him, no one's going to give a shit when you end up in jail for this and you get busted. And he's like, oh, no, you'll care.
Mhm.
As if anybody else is supposed to feel sorry for Lorne sitting in jail for something that he did.
Mhm.
It's the same thing here. And like you had said, there's complicated relationships. And it's difficult to say something is black and white when it comes to how a victim is going to feel about their abuser, because oftentimes they are people that they know,
Yes.
so it adds a different layer to that. So, and I completely understand. But for him, like you said, this is a stranger.
Mhm.
And what's interesting here is that he's saying, according to her, I have learned through time that the reason you must have done that was because you were for some reason feeling unwanted at the time. What I find the most important part here, I've learned through time. It would seem to me, if I were to be a 13-year-old girl, because I have empathy, I can actually do that.
Mhm.
And to be Kayla and grow up and understand sex, sexual relationships, inappropriate sexual relationships, healthy sexual relationships, and look back and think, oh my God, this disgusting old man, this pervert, took advantage of me.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. If anything, when she was young, she might think like, oh well, maybe it's because he never had a daddy. Maybe, like, and
Mm-hmm.
not because she didn't quite understand how bad it was. I think that can happen with kids. I think a lot of people, especially, in the age of like growing up on the internet, there were a lot of people who were kind of targeted by perverts, like just like
Sure.
Lauren in chat rooms.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and when they're young, maybe they don't see it. They don't understand just how bad it was. And then
Mm-hmm.
as they get older, in time or with time, they learn, holy shit, that was horrible. That was
Right.
absolutely disgusting what they did to me. As an
Right.
adult now myself, there is nothing in the world, no problem, no circumstance, no nothing that would make me do that to a kid. You know what I
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's what makes his excuses for himself so infuriating. Because there is no excuse. There's
Yeah.
nothing. You did it because you wanted to. And because you wanted to, you're a piece of shit.
Right. Exactly. Right. Just end of story. It doesn't matter that your family used you. It doesn't matter that your dad wasn't around. It if you didn't want to do it, you wouldn't have done it. You don't all of a sudden want to I mean, I'll use the example. You can't say like, "Oh, I was a normal guy with normal sexual interests until my family just treated me really badly, and so it drove me to want to fuck a dog. I just,
Sure. I know.
that dog was giving me attention, so I'm not attracted to dogs. I just wanted to fuck a dog. I was gonna use an example of like, oh, somebody abused me, and it made me want to fuck a man. I'm not attracted to men, but I don't even want to like bring a comparison between,
Sure.
you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah,
But
absolutely.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're attracted to what you are attracted to. You're not going to just being like, oh, my head was messed up doesn't make you attracted to something that you are not already attracted to.
No, exactly. Definitely. And from the standpoint of understanding why he is, that's something that he can explore with his therapist. If he
Hmm.
wants to understand, that's going to be a very difficult question. I know that there's people who can look back in life and in particular in childhood and identify certain things that then progressed into what they would call paraphilias, which would be I believe the term that would be identified as unusual or abnormal sexual desires for
Hmm.
things. And I'm sure because we're all adults, we know that that probably applies to pretty much anything in the world. You
Yeah.
wouldn't think it exists, but it probably does for someone.
Oh, for sure.
And so there could be a lot of therapy that's involved in that if he wanted to explore why was I attracted to girls of this age, and he would be able to work through that with a therapist who he's involved with, who's going to be specialized in people like him.
Hmm.
He can absolutely do that, and it would make sense that he would want to if he ever did, but he's not of that mindset of wanting to really get involved in those types of discussions because they all involve him, and the finger points right back at him. You're the one who has this, and he doesn't want to say that he's attracted.
I also think that he doesn't believe that he's attracted
I agree.
to young girls, and it's because there isn't a 13-year-old girl in front of his face at this moment. So he's
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm not attracted to kids. What kids am I attracted to? The
Yeah.
point, he doesn't see kids. He's not around kids. So how would he be? But or how would he have one just right in front of his face to have these feelings for? But the point is, when the opportunity arises, like they're not excluded from his dating prospects in his mind. They're not excluded from the people that he's attracted to. As we saw, if an opportunity sprung up for him to have a relationship or a sexual conversation with a young girl, he took it.
Yeah.
So I think he's like, well, I don't go into Walmart and see a little kid and get a hard on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, I don't know. I don't think I believe that. If there were two 14-year-old little girls walking around with short shorts,
Mm-hmm.
I think you would. I think you would look twice at them.
Sure, maybe they want a job working with his website,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. He just can't admit it. He just can't admit it.
Exactly.
Even when he's confronted with the fact that Kayla wasn't the only girl that he tried that with. He it all goes back to it was everyone else's fault. I was at the lowest point of my life when I was talking to that decoy. Okay, but you had been talking to Molly for like 2 years before that, remember?
Right.
Well, yeah, that those several years were the lowest point. in
Yeah.
my life.
Yeah. I was spiraling out of control.
Hmm.
Yeah. I know, man. It's
He he just can't take responsibility for anything, and this
nothing.
just popped in my head.
Yeah.
It's a little off topic, but one of my favorite things that he refused to take responsibility for and he blamed other people for was when he told the story about the toe, the toe story, which I can't even repeat because it's so horrible. He said, Casey said, "Wow, it's pretty gross. It's pretty gross that you did that." And he said, "Yeah, that's when my head was real messed up because everyone was using me so bad. I just didn't care anymore." He's blaming his family for him putting his toe inside a woman's body.
Yeah, in a sexual way. It
Yes,
was a sex
yes,
act.
right. That's the way we'll put it because I can't even say it. It's so repulsive.
Yeah. And is that because of Casey's reaction to that
I think
story?
so.
Yeah,
I
I
think so.
agree. Because
Yeah.
I think if he was speaking to like Winnie, for example, that would
Hmm.
be something Winnie would love. So I think that if he was saying that to her, he would have a totally different reaction. He'd be laughing and talking about how great it was and it was funny and they were going to do that together. But Casey
Yes.
wasn't having it, so therefore he
Yeah.
wasn't either.
Therefore, it wasn't his fault. It
Yeah, he
was
had to have an explanation of why he would do something so disgusting, even though
exactly.
we know it wasn't true and it never happened. It's
I.
impossible.
It is impossible. Um, and it's just a nightmare story. I hope to God it's not true. That is
Oh my goodness. It's not.
maybe that's where he got his athlete's foot from all those years ago.
No, it can't be. He never touched it.
No, I don't think so either. I mean, when she asked the questions like, "How did you?" Was she just like going totally commando there? What? How did that happen? He's like, "Look, I wasn't. I can't remember. I wasn't really feeling for panties. How could you miss them?"
Right. Yeah, exactly. With your weird toes that can move independently and can do things in such a strange way. He has like cartoon toes.
Yes, I think he took stories that other sort of like locker room talk, even though Lauren's never been in the locker room since he was
Sure.
12 and started playing basketball.
Yes.
But stories that other men have told, like, "Oh, I was with this girl and we did this and that," and then he took them and tried to make them his own stories. But he
Yes.
doesn't have enough knowledge about women to make them convincing. So,
Right. Yeah, and I think too he has a very strange imagination because
hmm.
remember when he was talking to Kayla and a couple of things. He talked about number 1, hopefully she doesn't wake up in the middle of the night, get a knife and think his dank is a carrot and cut it off. I
Yeah.
mean, where did that come from? And then also talking about how she's going to be cooking at the stove and he's going to be performing oral sex on her while she's cooking. I mean, they're
Yes.
just ridiculous ideas that don't make any sense.
Hmm.
And no one would ever be turned on by them except for Lorne because he's weird.
Yes, and how they're gonna fall asleep with him inside her all
Yes,
night.
right, all night long. Yeah, in the tub,
Yeah.
she has to hold on to his penis.
How would that even work?
It's well, listen, Amanda James. The tub that he had, it was the only way they were going to fit. So I think his hands needed to be on her butt, and she had to be holding on to his penis in order for them to fit in there.
Okay, that
Yeah,
makes total
it's the
sense.
only
They,
reason. It's
like a
not for anything.
puzzle.
It's like a puzzle.
I
Exactly.
always, I always thought it was like when you have like a baby in the bathtub and
Hmm.
they need like a little support thing, or they're gonna, they're because they're babies, so they
Yes.
can't like sit up on their own. They're gonna drown.
Yes.
If you don't have something sort of propping them up. That was like Kayla. She needed to hold on to his penis. Or she was just going to slip under the water and drown.
Exactly. Yeah. He
He
knew.
was
He
just,
knew how to protect her.
right, exactly. Just trying to keep her safe.
Exactly. So yeah, so I think with the toe story, I think that perhaps it stems from the idea of playing footsie, right? You're just kind of
Yes.
playing footsie. And then, of course, he would have seen perhaps in movies or whatever where like the woman will kind of take her foot and rub it up the guy's leg and sort of, and perhaps he'll kind of do the same thing, but he takes it to a very weird level. Like
Uh-huh.
it doesn't just stop there. We're like, they were kind of like playing under the table and then they're like, okay, let's get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
He says
No.
something that completely makes the story unbelievable. I mean, it's unbelievable because it's him, but then it
Mm-hmm.
makes it even more so because he inserts this fact that doesn't make any kind of sense.
And it is sort of strangely feminine. Like a lot of things he does that he thinks are going to like turn on a woman,
Uh-huh.
he sort of takes the feminine role in a lot of things. Like you said, in movies like where a woman is rubbing her foot like up a guy's leg or something.
True.
Because first of all, there's a big difference between women's feet and men's feet. I'm just going to say it.
Well, what are you saying though? What's the difference?
The difference is men's feet are yuckier than lady feet. I mean,
I
all
just
feet are
wanted
pretty
I
fucking
just wanted
gross.
you to say that.
Well, I'll say it. I don't care. People can get mad at me. There'll be dudes in the comments like, "My feet are perfect. I
Right.
get pedicures once a week." I'm sure
Exactly.
they're nice. Still, nobody wants them on their crotch. Okay.
That is true. And you know what?
Hmm.
Lorne, I believe, said that he was wearing sandals.
Yes. I've never he when did he ever wear sandals? And if he did, he shouldn't have because that man has had athlete's foot since he was in the Air Force, he
Yes.
said.
Yeah. Yeah. He's wearing sandals. That's why it makes sense. But then again, those are the types of details that he has to fill in when people
Mhm.
start questioning because Lauren doesn't wear sandals. He wears
No.
Crocs when he's nude. So,
And the only reason he wears Crocs is because he got them from the prison.
exactly. Exactly. Just like that white hat that he tries
Yes.
to wear. Yeah, just prison stuff. It's for free. So
Right. The
why
only
not?
shoes that he owns that he's like purchased for himself are his New Balance sneakers that a ton of like grandpas wear
Sure.
up around these parts and work boots, steel-toed boots.
Yep.
And has never bought a pair of sandals.
No.
So we just tore apart the story.
That's right. Solved. Consider it
Gotcha.
solved. Yes.
Yeah.
Speaking of shoes, it just popped into my head all of the wardrobe pieces that he purchased for
Hmm.
Casey. Did he
Hmm.
buy shoes?
He did.
Oh, he did.
He did.
Okay.
Yeah. It would have been so funny if he didn't.
It would have
And
been, yeah.
and he was just going to wear like his Walmart work boots or his dirty lawn mowing sneakers.
Yes.
But he did. He had the lady at the store pick out a pair of like brown kind of dressy shoes. Not like super dressy, but kind of like I don't know, in between. I have a picture of them in my head, but I can't
Were they like
perfect.
loafers or were they tied?
Oh shit, now I can't remember. I want to say they were loafers cuz that is funny to me. Lauren and loafers. But I think they were tied.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Oh my gosh.
But they did have the same general aesthetic as all the clothes that he picked out. Just sort of wrong and not kind of grandpa-ish, kind of McDonald's manager-ish.
Yeah, I was thinking wood shop teacher. Like
Mhm.
he's I can see him wearing that yellow outfit, the
Yes.
shirt and the tie. He's got his khaki pants and I can see him wearing his New Balances with that to school,
Mhm.
cuz
Yeah.
for wood shop that day.
Yeah. Those outfits were
They're really
just
something. And
and when
his face was funny too cuz
I
he was so
know. Well,
happy.
And when you think about the occasion that he bought those clothes for, those were his clothes to impress this girl that he's been lusting over for the past 15 years, who lives in LA. She is an actress and like a yoga teacher, and he was concerned about the paparazzi following them around LA. So when
These were
he
his
went to,
LA clothes.
these were his LA clothes. Yes, he thought
Man.
he was going to fit right in those clothes.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, they're great. And he had a beach outfit. Did you ever see the beach
I don't
outfit?
remember seeing it. I do remember hearing it because I believe there were basketball shorts, right? And like a
They
cut
were.
off shirt, not like a tank top, but just like cut off the sleeves.
Oh, it
Is
could
that
have
right?
been. It,
Okay.
yeah, it was either like one of those tank tops or a t-shirt with the sleeves cut off. I
Yeah.
thought it was. I didn't look super closely at it, so it could have been. I thought it was one of those because he had like a bunch of those tank tops.
Yeah.
And I don't think he bought the beach outfit new. It was just from stuff that he already had. So I want to say tank top.
Oh, okay.
They were basketball shorts
Yep.
that like went down below his knees.
Yes, I
Like
that's what I picture. That they just were
exactly.
really long.
Yep, long and baggy. And he wore his Crocs, his prison Crocs. Those were
Uh,
his beach shoes because his toenails
oh.
were falling off, so he couldn't just wear sandals.
Stop it.
And the tank top, the shorts were black, and the tank top was black too. And he tucked the tank top into the
Oh my
shorts.
God, that is perfect.
Yes, and then kind of like pulled it out a little bit.
Uh-huh,
You
like
know,
a
back in the day,
yes,
you know what I'm
you
talking
tuck
about.
it in, then you pull it out just to make it a little puffy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. That was his beach outfit.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny. I'm wondering if those shorts, and because I can't picture his workout video at the moment, but I'm wondering if those were the shorts because I remember those
Oh.
being really long.
Well, I think they probably were. The workout video, I remember the salmon colored tank top,
Yes, exactly. That's what I remember too.
and I believe they were black long shorts too.
Wow, those
Um,
could be the same ones.
I bet they were. Yeah. Well, because he holds on to clothes
Of
forever.
course, yeah.
The video with the girlfriend ring with that white
Mm,
shirt, those were
yeah.
his good clothes before he went shopping. That was his good shirt, like his fancy shirt,
Yes.
with the blue stripes the collar was like super wide,
Yes.
and he like didn't button it all the way up, so it was like strangely V-necked with his gross chest hair showing.
Uh-huh.
That shirt, he wore that shirt in one of the Lauren reality
I was about
shows.
to say, I think it was a cooking video because the shirt
Yep.
it's really big,
Hmm.
or at least it was at
Yeah, it's
that
just like
time.
not nicely fitted, and
Yeah.
not like some things like a button-up shirt is like
Mm-hmm.
a classic item of clothing, but the fit changes over time.
Yes.
You know what I mean? This
Yes.
was very clearly like outdated. Um, the fit of the shirt is
Yeah,
very
and I
outdated.
think do they call that collar a butterfly collar? I don't know why that's coming into my head. I could be completely
Well,
wrong on that, but the really big collar.
yeah, it could. It makes sense. That's what it
Yeah.
looks like, and it looks like it was from like the 80s
Yeah, I'm sure
or.
it was. Yeah, I'm
Mhm.
sure it was. His
Wow,
good
that's
shirt.
amazing. Yeah, his good shirt is older than Jamie.
That's the way he likes them.
Yeah, so we detoured off.
We completely did. That is been known to happen. You know,
Hmm.
we just keep talking. There's so much to talk about. That's the thing.
I know, and it all ties together. Like everything I see Lauren writing or hear him saying, I'm like, oh, remember the time he said this?
Yes,
And that's like the time he said this.
I know.
Oh, it all comes full
I
circle.
know it does. But I am glad that we kind of went off on that because reading that letter from Kayla was so enraging.
Hmm.
You know, so to just kind of like be able to talk about something funny. So I really appreciate you. Even though it's gross, his toe story, but it's really funny. It's one of the many examples of something funny that he's talked about to just kind of be like, okay, we're just going to
Yeah.
chill out for a little bit. Yeah, and talk about something funny because we were just really mad.
Yeah, I know. I do wish that, and I think I've said something similar to this before. This is no criticism of any of the catfish, but I wish that he had sort of been forced to go over these assignments, or at least I would love to go over these assignments with him
Mm-hmm.
and just point out all the reasons why he's wrong and stupid. I would really like it. So
I
for
mean, you
future
can.
catfish, I don't know. I don't know if I could.
What's
I could
stopping
try.
you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I guess that's him. I'll call him. Okay.
you're gonna go. Amanda
I'll give
James.
him.
You already have your name.
Oh yeah, that's true. That would be funny.
That would be
It's me,
funny.
Lauren, the
I.
real Amanda Jones. I
That
don't think
would
he'd
be
buy it.
he. I don't think he would either because um, you wouldn't know really any of the backstory,
Yeah.
and he would know more. It's the same thing like when LJ came around and Carrie was supposed to be his mother, and Lauren wanted to talk to Carrie.
Right.
Like, yeah, I want to talk to her, not through you, Winnie. I don't know why
Mhm.
he didn't trust Winnie, but he wanted to talk to Carrie just to make sure. And I think it was to make sure, that the story
Yeah.
was right. Yeah, which makes sense, it
Mhm.
makes sense. But yeah, I think it would be great if you spoke to him and went through these. It's not for the faint of heart. I can tell you that.
Yeah. I mean, I say I would love to. I'm sure I wouldn't love it in the moment. I feel like it would be very satisfying um, to just tell him. Like I wouldn't expect him to listen or to absorb it or
Mm-hmm.
understand or even agree,
Yeah,
but it would just be satisfying to go word by word, line by line. This is why you're wrong
yeah.
and stupid. Always stupid.
Well, we look forward to hearing all about that.
Well, I'll try. I don't know if
Okay.
he'll bite, but maybe.
I'm sure he would. I'm sure he would. So I think that is all that we have for tonight.
Yeah, I think that's it.
That's
And
it.
next time we can move on to more infuriating bullshit from
Yeah,
Lauren's mind.
exactly. Like we said before, there's more on Kayla coming up,
Hmm.
and it's just as upsetting. Okay, so we have that to look forward to. And then
Hmm.
there's some kind of, I don't want to say miscellaneous assignments, but they don't really group together with other things like this was the letters.
Hmm.
And then what did we talk about last time? Oh, his offense,
Yep.
and going through the pre offense and then the offense itself. So there wasn't really like a theme, they're just kind of there. But I think they're still going to be interesting to look at for the simple fact that it's interesting to see what Lauren has to say.
Yeah, it is interesting, and it's definitely worth doing it. But I will say, I was looking for. I always thought like I would love to see these assignments. I would love to see what he has to say,
Yeah.
and I do. But there's a tiny bit of disappointment, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I expected different from him or him to do a better job, but the way he's so vague. I think what's disappointing actually is that he gives these vague answers that aren't addressing the problem or they're making excuses or whatever. And I want to see like a correction on the paper in red pen, like I said, that said, no, Lauren, you did this wrong. Redo question number 3 and list this and this. I
Yeah.
It almost feels like he got away with just scribbling it down. I mean, he didn't. He's still in the class. I know he didn't get
Right.
away with it, but
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. There's no correction made on his paper.
hmm
There's no revisions because, like I said, these are old. These are
yeah,
old, and he hasn't done them over again, which is which is shocking as well. Because it's like, how can you still have the same answer from 10 years ago?
yeah.
Haven't you learned anything? I mean, obviously the
hmm
answer is no, but come on.
He
So,
hasn't. He was. He was asked in the psych eval to name one thing he learned in treatment, and he couldn't
True.
name a
He
single
couldn't.
thing.
He can't name a single thing that he learned. He can't name any of the patterns that he
Hmm.
broke with Ramona. He can't
Right.
name anything. He's very bad at lists. If there's a list of
Yeah.
something, he can't. He can't do it.
Oh, yeah. There you go, asking me for specific examples. I'm so bad with examples.
That is right. That is right. So we will continue next time. And until then, take care.